All right, so we're here for another episode. We're talking about salmon. This is pretty fun because we haven't really done a food site before, and we don't really
Correct.
have like too many food clients. But what I love about Howard's description was that um, I work for a bunch of fishermen.
Immediately in my head, I was like, they cast down nets, they go on a boat. So, which I've
Right,
worked with
and
fishermen
so
before.
yeah, well, I have heard this from people who come to our Google Analytics class who are in food, and they're just like, we just like all of the founders' dreams are to be in Target. All of the founders' dreams are to be in these other big box stores. And I'm like, why? Because subscriptions, if they love your product, then I would subscribe. I subscribe to food products. I subscribe to like proteins and vitamins. And I would also subscribe to, food product, like for example, like stuff that my kid eats. My baby's a picky eater. I would subscribe to that too. So, but like they don't think about their e-commerce D2C as something important.
Also, people's shopping habits have changed throughout the years, especially pandemic. I think those prior to pandemic still has a habit of going to shop at Target and Walmart and all these places for their groceries. But once pandemic happened, people are leaning more towards subscription, which is why that's such a big topic in the e-com world because everyone's trying to make it automated. Everyone's trying to capture and optimize subscription apps. So Howard's on the right track though.
Yeah. So we get to talk about the Fisherman's e-commerce website, which I think is a great segue into maybe even talking to other people and inviting people onto the show to be a case study for the Asian Boss Testing Channel because we're teaching everybody how to do it. And if you don't know how to, we also will do that for you.
And we will get paid with food. I'm not gonna lie to you. I had a lady. I've been talking to a lot of CPG brands, and there was a hot pot product. It was delicious, so we will get paid as a fine line
In
at the very
food.
bottom.
Oh,
Feel free to send us samples.
I love that when you get to the website, it's super beautiful. The description of the company was like, hey, you know what? We're a bunch of fishermen. We care about fish. D2C isn't something that we typically do. And so this is a small part of our business. But they had all these like clear things that were important to them, like their sushi grade. That's a big deal. Like you could ship sushi grade, sustainably sourced salmon across the country. That's amazing. And when you go into the shop, my first impressions were like, oh, it's like I got boxes and pieces of fish. Did you have any impressions like right away?
Yeah, I think that was the feedback we gave back was, listen, if we are promoting how fresh and what the quality grade looks like, you're showing it on your product listing page as packaged goods, which already kind of downplay the quality of your stuff. Granted, it's very important for someone to see this, but I wouldn't use these images as first impression, especially for
Mm-hmm.
newcomers that come in. It's not enticing for me to click through. Like, let's go inside this Ocean's 12, which again, love the names. I would have so much fun playing with those
Oh,
words.
fishy
I love
puns?
marketing.
I can't even imagine.
Ocean's 12? Come on. But yeah, like I would use maybe even a second image to
Sure.
be
Or
the
like,
front.
product gallery. Like, I love this one. Why isn't
Yes.
this one
Love.
first?
Yes.
The product gallery, like
Possibilities. Or the
when you
sushi
need to
one.
see.
Next one.
Sure. And the next one is, yeah, or the sushi one. Like we talked about this in the last episode. I think that this one,
Last image.
and last image is
Yeah.
the complete, the selling the dream.
Yes.
Um, yeah. And I think that the product gallery is the place where I think a lot of optimization can happen that impacts it really well. Like you've got your first thing is like, here's a box and some fish. But what sells me honestly is this one. The touts,
Mhm.
like having particular products, especially like this, it's not apparel with a model. something that's going to be on a plate or in your hand or you're holding a tool, right?
Mhm.
Like having these kinds of touts in the gallery is a big deal to me. But let's talk about what the actual problem was. So we go through this, we actually do some research and we look at the data and we can see that the data said that actually the conversion rate for adding to cart when we're looking at the full journey of the funnel
Mhm.
was really low. The add to cart conversion rate looked something more like you were about to buy a Gucci boot. Not a lot of them.
Not a lot. Yeah, that's not a lot.
It's
This
like,
is high AOV, right? But not this.
right. Like if you're coming to buy sushi and you're shopping for it, like why wouldn't you just buy it?
Yes.
Is there a
Well,
lot of consideration that needs to happen before that?
well, again, we're going back to we're selling things that you're not able to try on, right? Which kind of relates to a lot of bottled product. Like you and I talked a
Mm-hmm.
lot about if you're selling something that's in the bottle, which means you got to tell a good story so that people can imagine what happens, what's in the bottle. Same thing with salmon, right? When it comes to food, you don't know the quality until you try something. So I feel
Mm-hmm.
like again, it goes kind of back to how you're portraying this image and how are you luring people to do that extra click. Um,
Yeah. Well, let's go back to the case study because we're looking at it actually as it is today. So another test for us, so once we test, is we can see that people actually live these on forever because you know what? We win.
get
Okay.
the frozen.
Ads to cart were really poor for something that you should just buy. If you're there to buy salmon, you should just buy it. Why were the ads to cart really poor? Idea number one was this example. Sometimes I've seen this a lot and I have wondered instead of going to shop now, which brings you to a product detail page, if you're just there to buy salmon, what if you just add to cart right
Quick
there?
shop.
But we couldn't test it.
That is accurate, which is a very common issue.
Say more.
Um, do you feel that way though? Do you feel like a lot of times you're like, oh, I have all these great ideas, I want to test, and then you run into an issue, and the issue is
Technical. Always.
bow, bow, bow. Yes. So I remember this. So we want to do this hypothesis. The test cannot be executed without changing the entire theme. Can we stop for a minute and talk about that? Um, this is by
Mm-hmm.
far one of the biggest issues that have happened in the last year or two is that we have a lot of clients that want to do the A/B testing, want to do more advanced research and data collection in order to make better decisions for next year, which number one doesn't happen very often. There's not a lot of clients that understand
There's
the
other
need for
clients like, we
data.
want to do better next year. I feel like all of
Yeah,
them want to.
they
All
do,
of
but
them
they don't
want
know,
to.
but they don't ask the right questions or go the right route, right? A lot of times it's like dump more money in marketing or emails or like there's so many things that people think that there's going to move the needle when in
Yeah.
fact is let's chill out for a minute and look at what's the data on our website. Now, the first thing first is can we even get the data from the website? And that's one of the biggest problems where people run into is your
Oh, yeah.
website is outdated.
They just don't
It
have it.
is
Mm-hmm.
it's still on Shopify 1.0. What does that mean? It means that Shopify is now at 2.0 and they are starting to sunset all the features in the back and the maintenance from 1.0, which means that if your site's still on 1.0, on a monthly basis, your site is already decreasing in performance. People are not
Mm-hmm.
caring much about it. The apps that is already in your website, such as the Klaviyo or the Gorgeous for customer service or any retention or
They're
any
already being
conversion,
updated.
they are on 2.0. They're already, and they're
Mm-hmm.
fixing their apps on 2.0 instead of caring about 1.0 because they know sooner or later when we all up. Doesn't that sound familiar from GA3 to GA4?
To GA4. Yeah. I feel bad for merchants in some respect because like the Shopify upgrade and then the GA upgrade and the Facebook pixel change and like shit's just all over the fucking place right now.
Yes.
So I get it.
Yes.
I get it. But
I feel you.
like I mean, can you just talk a little bit about like what happens? I mean, and it sounds like because what happened here is like, listen, yo, man, you can't do this until you upgrade to 2.0 because all the features and functionality that you want to test are not available in Shopify 1.0.
Exactly. Exactly. It's kind of like you're trying to remodel your house, but then your house doesn't even have the plugs to make it a smart home. And you're like, Carol, I want to use Alexa for all these things. Sorry, your house is built in the 50s. We need to change the foundation of it. And that's kind of the
Yeah.
best way I can explain. I remember that's what I told Howard as well, is that, listen, we can do it, but until you update the foundation of your theme, we're not
Mm-hmm.
able to perform any of these testings for you. And it's not going to be
Yeah.
accurate either. And for
Mm-hmm.
those reasons, we have to clean house first. So, which is unfortunate, because I know when merchants comes to you, Mia, and go, hey, I'm ready to do these tests, I'm ready to integrate, they're thinking about immediate, like data collection immediately.
Mm-hmm.
If
Mm-hmm.
you tell them that, hey, you could probably have to push that back for another quarter until you remodeled first, I
Yeah.
know it's very defeating, of course.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean,
I
we
know.
end up like having to split the baby, which is what we ended up having to
Mm,
do here. It was like, okay, well, what can we do given your limited environment? And lucky for them, they actually could do something. And so in this example, like what we were looking in the control was what they had before was like, okay, well, our problem, remember, is like the add to cart. And we could see on the product detail pages that they actually had all of this other stuff like reviews, touts, like all these no heavy metals, sushi grade badges in front of the add to cart. And our simple hypothesis was like, look, if you just push all that stuff to the bottom and get people closer from subscribe to the button so that there's no
mm,
confusion about where to look or where to click, that we're going to increase. And so again, like moving a button doesn't seem like a very interesting test, but it is something that we were able to do in the limited environment of Shopify 1 themes.
yep.
And then we knew like if we won that we would be able to know like the prominence of it was going to encourage the add to cart. So we actually launched that 100% to all site visitors to see like, Tasha like made that happen for
Yeah.
everybody. We ran it only for a 2-week time period. And we're going to say, okay, if the add to cart increases, we're going to win. And secondarily, we will also see if revenue increases. That's not a primary success metric because lots of things can happen between an add to cart and a checkout. So we don't usually call a test on something that's further away. Maybe something in billing or shipping had influenced the metric. So here for this product detail page, add to cart was the only metric we were going to call the test on. And that increased the add to cart conversion rate
Just moving button.
31%.
Button up.
Just
Button
moving the
up.
button. Like,
Button.
why wouldn't you do this? Why wouldn't
31.
everybody do this? Right. And that's a 15.
31.
I
Two
mean, yeah, it
weeks.
resulted in 2 weeks, 2 weeks, simple button move. All it took was, in my mind, a willingness to look at the data, a willingness to articulate what's wrong here. We need to improve add to cart and say, like, if I can make the problem statement that I can start to ideate on how to fix it. And then looking at your pages, because I think, I don't know, in your experience, full on, sometimes e-commerce managers have the website and paid media and they manage Klaviyo and they manage all these things.
So
Sometimes they
much.
forget to look at the website.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. It's like, you and I both know, and every marketing manager knows, that 60% of your traffic comes through mobile. But majority of them don't look at mobile. One, they don't have
Mm-hmm.
time. Two, they're in front of their desk all the time. So they neglect little things, even though it's the basic. So
Yeah.
you're right. And with all the changes that we're just talking about, I mean, it's been real
It
for
hasn't been
marketing
easy for
managers.
them.
All
No, we
right.
get it. We empathize with you, Shopify merchants.
Yes.
Like it hasn't been easy.
Yeah.
But if you just
Use that
have
stuff.
somebody
Yeah.
looking at the data,
I mean,
making
look
some
at this.
assessments. Yeah.
If I feel like a lot of times, like what we were saying is, open your hearts and let us in. We know how to collect the data for you. I mean, look at this, right? Like you were just saying that you freaking nailed it, right? If the willingness to learn, willingness to just pause for a minute and look at the site at the present state and see how to move forward. But it's hard unless the owners of the company has an idea and you're not rushing the team to just hit the deadline. Like, we got to hit this mark. We got to hit this mark. We got to work it backwards. We got to look at what opportunity is in front of us and what are we leaving on the table. A lot of times that was just it. You don't have to go out there to get your top of the funnel. You can just change your website to the point to
Oh
see
yeah.
what your customer behavior is. That's it. And you don't have to spend that much to get that information, to have a huge incremental
Oh
lift.
no.
I mean, I'm begging you at this point, just give us.
Please optimize your site. Blog post that I made a couple weeks ago at this point, but it did really well. It was a LinkedIn post. It was very
Mhm.
low effort, but it got so much traction where I was like, okay, like typically you would spend this much money and you're looking at all of these ads and how you're spending on ads, and if your site has a 2% conversion rate, you're pretty good, and
Yeah,
that's the world you live in. But if you
yeah,
had increased it just a little bit, your cost per
yeah.
acquisition would go down from $250 to $167,
Hmm.
and your average order value is like lifting up. And so, this kind of thing is like, I don't know why it's like it's like fire was invented,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think it's to your point, like, again, empathizing with our audience and e-commerce directors and managers who have a shit ton on their plate and a lot changing. It's hard to remember to
Yeah.
look at the website and see. Because you're right. Like, when I talk to customers, they're just like, yeah, we had to upgrade to GA4 and then we had to do the Shopify 2.0 and it was such a big investment. And I'm like, great. All the world is in front of you now.
Yeah,
All the
yeah.
opportunities in front of you. You are unshackled by your GA3 minimal data, and you're
Hmm.
unshackled by your Shopify 1 shitty template.
Limitations. Hmm.
Right. I
Yeah,
mean, how much does it really cost? Like, can we talk about this?
yeah. How
The
big is your
upgrade from
site?
Shopify 1 to 2. Like, what do they have to consider? If you're somebody that's like maybe 50, maybe you're 400,000, maybe you're 500,000 in annual revenue and you're still
Okay.
on Shopify 1,
Hmm.
and you're like, we can bleed a little bit on this, can't we?
Hmm.
I mean, if you're
Uh,
doing like 50, 100, $500,000, what is your
mhm.
investment really going to look like to upgrade?
So, two ways to answer that. One, I would look into how big is your catalog, because you could be making 500K a year, but your catalog is like you have one product versus you have 50 products. The
Mm-hmm.
strategy is completely different, and the efforts of lifting your site to retheme could be very different.
Mm.
The other way of looking at it is the magic number through study. It shows that to grow your e-commerce business, you should be investing 8 to 10% of your annual GMV. So that's
Mm-hmm.
the magic number here. So if you count it backwards and you divide it up, and again, this is about the year, this includes the yearly investment of retheming. And again,
Mm-hmm.
it go kind of back to how many pages you have. Do you have a lot of pages just about us? Or do you have a ton of pages that's like marketing landing pages that have tons of apps on it? And how heavy is your website? All that goes back in. So if you're making 500K a year, but you have like 40, 50 apps up there, I would say the migration's very long. And you and I are going to have a come to Jesus talk about why you have 50 apps.
Right.
I
But
have
in the
seen
case
it.
of
That's
ocean
why I said so.
salmon,
Yeah.
right. Like,
Oh,
in the
that would
case
be
of ocean
easy.
salmon or other foods, like, have like maybe like 8, 10 SKUs,
Yeah.
it's a little less painful.
Oh, 100%. That one would be
Mm-hmm.
easy peasy. And it also depends on what theme you want to move towards.
Mm-hmm.
Shopify 2.0 right now has quite a bit of, I think there's like a handful of free themes like Dawn. But a lot of different companies have their own proprietary theme, like we do, named Core and Venus, and they're amazing. Come talk to me.
Well, and let me ask you, like, how many themes out there have the data layer for GA4 already built in? I think
Yes,
it's
sure.
pretty hot shit, honestly. Like, that you did that. It's amazing because
Yeah.
not a lot of developers care about that. They just want to make things work and look nice.
Yes.
And the fact that you built your themes with the data layer already in place so that anybody could tag it makes it so much easier for merchants to be able to understand the user experience on the site. And that's
It's
That's the
Turnkey
missing piece
solution.
always. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Like,
kind of what you and I talk about is if we are providing quality and all the opportunities for our clients and brands to excel in their business, it's the turnkey solution is what those store owners need, and not like go
mhm,
do this and update this. If we have a theme that already have something where you can come in as ClickPoint partners to kind of lock it in and do that, A/B testing
mhm.
will be in place, much easier when you read your data. Like you said, GA4 is meant for AI. Um, you're much better at explaining that part than I do, but I take that for really to the heart and we build that into the theme. But yeah, like Ocean, I going back to that, putting them on core theme. Honestly, I would say that would take maybe 50 hours or less
Wow. Yeah,
development
they should know
hours.
that. Mhm.
Hmm.
Because
Especially that.
retheming opens up all these other opportunities. And,
Yeah,
if you use the Venus or core
core.
themes, you'll have the data layer already baked in. And oh,
Correct.
by the way, other Shopify theme developers, take note.
Yeah,
The kind
talk
of
to
user
ClickPoint.
experience, like, don't you want to know if the modules that you built work?
Yeah.
I think that's the main thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you and I can go deep into how Shopify really sets up their store and their limitations on what can be put up into the theme store. There's a lot of limitations there because they do need a safe space for for the apps, the app partnerships like the Gorgeous, the Clavio, and the Recharge, Rebuy, all these people. So, I mean, that's something you and I and my CTO can
Hmm.
more. Retheme really, really is a big um what's it called, a big lever to having a much better database, and utilizing that for A/B testing. I don't know how else to emphasize that besides screaming in the top of my lungs on a
Yeah, I do
mountaintop.
feel like screaming
Data.
sometimes. All right. Okay. So I would say that the key takeaways are pretty similar to, I mean, these are very similar to things that we already know. Like, key takeaway for me is like number one, you need to update your Shopify theme. Like, that's just such a, especially if you have so few SKUs and it's only going to be 50 hours worth of work, that's going to enable you to unlock so many features to be able to A B test. Number two, look at your Google Analytics data beyond KPIs, beyond like transaction conversion rate. Look at what people are doing across the customer journey, and there's hidden money in there, I guarantee you. That's number two. And number three, only buy Shopify themes that have the data layer pre-plugged in so people like me can get user experience metrics in there very easily without having to work with developers. And the only two are Core and Venus by code space, theme by code space. It's in the Shopify.
It should be. It really should. We can't search it on Shopify Market because it's our
What?
proprietary. It's our own theme. It's not on there. That's what I was saying. Shopify doesn't let all these cool themes be in there because they need to save. They need to save these for like the apps. So we're our own. You're not going to be able to find